My name is Mark, and it all began at my 24th birthday party. Thomas, my best friend since college, had insisted on throwing the celebration at his apartment. We'd been close for years, sharing everything from study sessions to heartbreaks, though I'd never admitted how my feelings for him had grown beyond friendship. Thomas was the kind of person who lit up a room, tall, athletic, with an easy smile that made everyone feel special. That night, he was being the perfect host, making sure everyone's drinks were full, especially mine. "Birthday boy needs to loosen up," he kept saying, bringing me increasingly creative cocktails. By midnight, most of the guests had left, leaving just a core group of close friends sprawled across Thomas's living room. The world had taken on that soft, fuzzy quality that comes with too many drinks. I remember Thomas sitting close to me on the couch, his thigh pressed against mine, as he told some story that had everyone laughing. "You should crash here," he said when the last guests were leaving. "You're in no state to get home." I nodded, already half asleep. Thomas's guest room was familiar territory. I'd stayed over countless times before. He helped me up the stairs, his arm around my waist for support. I was acutely aware of his touch, even through my drunken haze. "Happy birthday, Mark," he said softly, closing the door behind him. I fell into bed fully clothed, the room spinning pleasantly. Sleep came quickly, but sometime in the night, I became aware of movement beside me. The mattress dipped, and a warm body pressed against my back. In my half-conscious state, I wasn't sure if I was dreaming. Thomas's familiar scent surrounded me, that mix of cologne and something uniquely him. His arm slipped around my waist, and I felt his breath against my neck. "Mark," he whispered, his voice uncertain. "Are you awake?" I made a soft sound, neither confirmation nor denial. My heart was racing, but I kept my eyes closed, afraid that opening them would break whatever spell had brought him to my bed. His hand moved slowly up my chest, fingers tracing patterns through my shirt. "I've wanted to do this for so long," he murmured, more to himself than to me. "You have no idea how hard it's been, pretending I only want to be friends." I stayed perfectly still, barely breathing, as his lips brushed the back of my neck. The touch was feather-light, questioning. When I didn't pull away, he grew bolder, pressing closer, his kisses becoming more deliberate. My body responded instinctively, pressing back against him. I heard his sharp intake of breath, felt his arm tighten around me. "Mark," he said again, his voice rough. "If you're awake, if you want me to stop." Instead of answering, I turned in his arms to face him. The room was dark, but moonlight filtering through the window illuminated his features. The uncertainty in his eyes, the slight parting of his lips. For a moment, we just looked at each other, years of unspoken desire hanging in the air between us. Then, moving with a courage born of alcohol and long-suppressed feelings, I kissed him. That first kiss was tentative, clumsy with alcohol and nerves, but it quickly deepened. Thomas responded with an intensity that took my breath away, rolling me onto my back and pressing me into the mattress. His hands were everywhere, sliding under my shirt, tracing my ribs, learning my body with eager touches. "God, Mark," he breathed against my lips, "you have no idea how many times I've imagined this." I ran my fingers through his hair, something I'd wanted to do for years. "Tell me," I whispered. "Every time you stayed over," he said between kisses, "every movie night when you fell asleep on my shoulder, every time I saw you with someone else." His voice caught. "It killed me, watching you date other people. Why didn't you say something?" He pulled back slightly, his weight supported on his elbows as he looked down at me. "Scared of losing you. You're my best friend, Mark. If this went wrong..." I pulled him back down, silencing his doubts with another kiss. We lost ourselves in exploration, hands and lips discovering new territories on familiar maps. Thomas was gentle but passionate, each touch reverent, as if he couldn't quite believe this was real. When we finally fell asleep, tangled together in the sheets, dawn was breaking outside the window. My last conscious thought was a mixture of happiness and fear. Happiness at finally having what I'd wanted for so long, fear of what the morning would bring. I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and an empty bed. For a moment, panic gripped me. Had Thomas regretted everything and run? Then I heard movement downstairs and smelled coffee brewing. I found Thomas in the kitchen, already dressed, staring intently at the coffee maker as if it held the secrets of the universe. He tensed when he heard me enter but didn't turn around. "Hey," I said softly, my heart pounding. "Hey," he finally turned, holding out a cup of coffee like a peace offering. "How's your head?" "Surprisingly okay." I took the coffee, our fingers brushing. The contact sent electricity through my body, memories of last night flooding back. "Thomas, about last night. We should talk about that," he interrupted, running a hand through his disheveled hair. I took advantage. You were drunk and I wasn't that drunk," I cut in. "And I wanted it. Have wanted it for a long time, actually." His eyes snapped to mine. "How long?" "Remember that spring break trip to Florida? Junior year?" "That was 3 years ago," he said, looking stunned. I nodded, taking a sip of coffee to steady my nerves. "You were playing volleyball on the beach, laughing in the sun. That's when I knew my feelings weren't just friendship anymore." Thomas moved closer, placing his coffee cup on the counter. "I fell for you during finals week, sophomore year. You brought me coffee and sandwiches while I was studying, took care of me when I was stressed out of my mind. No one had ever done that for me before." "So we've both been idiots for years?" I managed a smile. "Complete idiots," he agreed, reaching for me. His kiss was different from last night, slower, more deliberate, no alcohol clouding the intensity. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "What do we do now?" The next few weeks were a delicate balance of exploring our new relationship while maintaining our normal routines. Our friend group was tight-knit, and we weren't ready to tell them yet, wanting to figure things out between ourselves first. But being alone together was different now. Movie nights that used to involve sitting at opposite ends of the couch now found us tangled together, more focused on each other than the screen. Our usual takeout dinners became more intimate, feeding each other bites and stealing kisses between conversations. Thomas was surprisingly romantic. He'd leave little notes in my jacket pockets, send random texts during the day just to say he was thinking of me. One evening, he recreated our first college hangout, cheap pizza and video games, but this time the gaming was interrupted by makeout sessions that left us both breathless. "We're terrible at this secret relationship thing," he laughed one night, when our friend Mike nearly caught us kissing in the kitchen during a group dinner. "Maybe we should tell them," I suggested, straightening Thomas's rumpled shirt. He caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. "Soon. I like having this just between us for now. Once everyone knows, they'll have opinions, expectations." I understood his hesitation. Our friends were supportive people, but this would change the dynamic of our entire group. Plus, there was the fear that if things didn't work out between us, everyone would be forced to choose sides. But keeping the secret was becoming increasingly difficult. Thomas was naturally affectionate, and restraining himself in public was clearly a struggle. I'd catch him watching me across rooms with such intensity it made my breath catch, see him start to reach for me before catching himself. One night, after a particularly close call, where our friend Sarah almost walked in on us in Thomas's bedroom, we lay tangled in his sheets, discussing our situation. "I can't keep pretending you're just my best friend," Thomas said, tracing patterns on my chest. "Today at the bar, when that guy was flirting with you, it took everything I had not to go over there and kiss you in front of everyone." I turned to face him. "So let's tell them. Our friends love us. They'll understand." He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, but can we do it right? Have everyone over for dinner? Make it special?" The dinner party was planned for the following weekend. Thomas was uncharacteristically nervous, cleaning his apartment obsessively, and changing the menu 3 times. I found his anxiety endearing, especially since this was the same group we'd hung out with countless times before. Our friends arrived in pairs, Mike and Sarah, Jake and Lauren, Chris and his new girlfriend, Emma. We'd prepared dinner together, moving around Thomas's kitchen with the easy familiarity of 2 people used to sharing space. If our friends noticed anything different about our interaction, they didn't mention it. After dinner, as everyone settled in the living room with wine, Thomas caught my eye and nodded slightly. My heart started racing as he cleared his throat. "So we actually invited you all here for a reason," he began, moving to stand beside my chair. "Mark and I, we're together, as in dating, It happened after his birthday party, but honestly, the feelings have been there for a long time. There was a moment of silence. Then Sarah burst out laughing. "Oh, thank God! We've been watching you two dance around each other for years." "Wait, you knew?" I asked, stunned. "Everyone knew," Mike chimed in. "We had a betting pool on when you'd finally figure it out. Jake owes me $50, by the way." The relief of being out to our friends changed everything. We could finally be ourselves in public. No more hiding or pretending. Thomas became even more affectionate, taking every opportunity to touch me, hold my hand, or steal quick kisses. Our friends were incredibly supportive, though they enjoyed teasing us about how oblivious we'd been. "Seriously," Sarah said during one group dinner, "you two were practically dating already. You just weren't sleeping together." The transition from best friends to lovers wasn't always smooth. We had our first real fight 3 months into officially dating over something ridiculous. I'd reorganized Thomas's bookshelf without asking, and he'd snapped at me about overstepping boundaries. "Just because we're dating doesn't mean you can change my stuff without asking," he'd said, angry in a way I'd never seen him. "I was trying to help," I shot back. "Your organization system made no sense." We didn't speak for 2 days, the longest we'd gone without communication since college. It was torture. I missed him with a physical ache, missed my best friend as much as my boyfriend. On the 3rd day, he showed up at my apartment with coffee and an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry," he said before I could speak. I overreacted. "The truth is, I'm scared sometimes. Scared of how much I need you, how completely you've become part of my life. It's not just about the bookshelf." I pulled him inside, into my arms. "I'm scared too," I admitted. "Scared of messing this up, of losing my best friend if things go wrong." "Nothing's going to go wrong," he whispered against my lips. "We've wasted too much time being afraid already." The makeup sex was incredible, but more important was the conversation that followed. We talked about our fears, our hopes, our need to balance our romantic relationship with the friendship that had always been our foundation. As our first anniversary approached, both of our friendship turned romance and my fateful birthday party, Thomas became mysteriously busy with planning something he wouldn't tell me about. Our friends were clearly in on it, exchanging knowing looks whenever I tried to ask about his plans. The evening of my 25th birthday, Thomas blindfolded me and drove us somewhere. When he removed the blindfold, I found myself in the same spot where we'd first met in college, the campus coffee shop where I'd literally run into him, spilling his drink and offering to buy him a new one. The shop was closed, but Thomas had arranged private access. Inside, fairy lights twinkled everywhere, and our old booth was set up with candles and flowers. Our friends were there too, holding champagne glasses and grinning. "I wanted to do this here," Thomas said, taking my hands in his, "because this is where our story began. 5 years ago, you crashed into my life with an apologetic smile and a replacement coffee. You became my best friend, my favorite person, the one I wanted to share everything with." He dropped to one knee, and my heart stopped. "Mark, this past year has shown me that what we have is more than just friendship that evolved into love. It's a once-in-a-lifetime connection that I want to keep building on for the rest of our lives. Will you marry me?" Through tears, I pulled him up into a kiss, our friends cheering around us. "Is that a yes?" He laughed against my lips. "Of course it's a yes, you idiot," I replied, letting him slip the ring onto my finger. Later that night, back in what had become our shared apartment, the bookshelf now organized through compromise, Thomas held me close in bed. "Any regrets?" he asked softly, "about how that drunk night changed everything?" I turned to face him, tracing his features in the darkness. Only that we waited so long to be brave enough to cross that line. Now, as I write this a year into our marriage, I watch Thomas sleeping beside me. He still reaches for me in his sleep, still holds me like he did that first night. Our friendship hasn't been lost in our romance. It's grown stronger, deeper, richer, with the added layers of intimacy and commitment. Sometimes the best love stories start with friendship. Sometimes it takes a little alcohol, a lot of courage, and years of built-up tension to transform a platonic relationship into something more. But when it happens with the right person, it's worth every moment of waiting, every fear overcome, every boundary crossed. Thomas stirs beside me, reaching out sleepily. "Come back to bed," he murmurs. As I slide back into his arms, I think about how some mistakes, like getting drunk at your birthday party and letting your best friend crawl into your bed, turn out to be the best decisions of your life.